think? Huh? Here's your new home. Huh? Good girl. Yeah. What do you think? All right, I am in our garage for the first time since we closed. We've been working on this for a couple months now, and finally everything came together. Closed this morning, took possession, and it is time to start working. I've got a list of projects already in mind, and the first one before we move in, and probably the most exciting one to me, is going to be redoing this garage. So I want to do an epoxy floor on this whole garage, and since I know how much of a pain in the butt it is to move things out after you've moved in, I'm gonna start by doing that before we move all of our stuff over. So I've already got the supplies. I just have to come up with a plan, clear this place out, decide how I'm gonna do the prep work, and then go to town on it. Because the sooner I can get that done, the sooner we can get moved over. Oh, are you happy? You wanna go play in your yard for the first time? This is your yard, come here. Okay, go explore. Oh man, look at all that room. Yeah. So exciting, huh? After letting Maru play in her new yard, we popped back into the garage to meet our new neighbor, Monty, who has been awesome since the day we first came to look at this house. And it's honestly one of the things that we like most about this neighborhood so far from our limited experience. So he gave me a hand hauling the stuff out of the garage, which was perfect timing. And then while I was working my way through the rest of it, I had another neighbor swing by and say hi, and he was just as friendly. And so we are just pumped to have such a cool community around us already. I started cleaning out the floor just to kind of see what I was working with, and then Sadie stopped by, and she had told me a while back that the very first thing she wanted to do when we got the new house was to get a flag up. First things first.
Yay! Thank you.
Oh, hang it?
Yeah. There's a higher.
Starting the project. I already got the garage all cleaned out, the first step in the process. And while I'm working on that, Sadie, for some reason, wants to change the color of this room. I don't know why. Maru's happy with it. Once we got the cabinet out, I let Sadie go to town on this mudroom where she could get to painting, and I went back out to the garage. And the plan for this was to do a dry etch. So a lot of people do acid etch, which necessitates using a bunch of water, spraying out the garage, and then leaving it to sit for multiple days to completely dry. And so I want to avoid that. So I rented this big grinder from Home Depot, and it came with this diamond abrasive wheel on it. And the game plan was to just grind the entire floor to create a nice, well-scratched adhesive surface for the epoxy to stick to. And so I went to town, and I didn't want to use any water again because I wanted to keep it nice and dry. So I made sure to wear a respirator, even though I didn't quite know how to use this thing. After a quick learning curve with the grinder, I realized that when I'm going close to the edges, I want to be facing it straight on. And I went to town on the rest of the floor, where I started with this big painted area on the concrete near the man door into the house that matched the shape of the rug that used to sit there. Not totally sure why it was there, but I wanted to make sure I could get rid of it. And after grinding for a while, I decided to try adding water to the tank on the grinder just to see if it helped the grinding process. And I didn't notice much of a difference. It definitely helped with dust control, but overall grinding didn't seem to be that much more effective. And so I squeegeed the water out and got some fans going just to make sure that it was drying out quickly, and went to town just dry grinding the rest of the floor. And where the edges met, because there was a little bit of an uneven transition at some spots, I spent extra time there, making it to where it was nice and smooth transitioning between the different blocks at the expansion joint. Once I got done with the main body, I used my angle grinder with a flapper disc on it to try to clean up the edges around the garage where I couldn't reach with the large grinder. And the flapper disc worked okay. It did work well for cleaning up some chipped spots in the middle of the floor that I needed to repair, but on the edges it didn't seem to remove a lot of material very quickly. So I did all that, and then I grabbed this concrete patch and repair kit that I bought, which was a 2-part mixture that you have to use 1 part of the part A and 2 parts of the part B, and you just mix it together on a chunk of cardboard using a putty knife, and then it makes a nice smooth kind of a peanut buttery texture that you can just scrub into the different holes that need repair around the garage. And well, we'll see how it works, but it seemed to be going on pretty well. By this point, it was starting to get late in the day, and so I just wanted to get these patches together before I called it a night. And I also decided to do a little bit more cleanup of dust to just see the state of the floor before I headed home for the night. And I used the shop vac to vacuum it all up, though this was probably futile since I'd be back in the morning to make more dust. Got this diamond cutting wheel, or diamond cup, grinding wheel rather, and I'm gonna throw it on the grinder, go to town. Well, these diamond cup wheels are definitely more expensive. They are totally worth it. This was my first time using one on my angle grinder, and it was so much more effective than the flapper disc, and it quickly removed all of the paint that was kind of run down on the perimeter. So I worked my way around the entire garage, cleaning it up, making it a nice surface that hopefully the epoxy would adhere to well, and it created a ton of dust, but was effective. And then I moved on and grabbed a stiff bristled brush to clean out the cracks throughout the garage, to get all the dirt out of there so that the epoxy could get around the corners. And then I took that same brush and just scrubbed the entire floor to try to work up any dust that may be in the crevices before I blew the floor one last time. Okay, all of the prep is done. I took the big rental sander, grinded the entire floor. I took my hand grinder, grinded all of the edges, got rid of all the paint, debris, cleaned it up a little bit. I scrubbed the whole thing with a brush. I blew it out like 4 different times. And so I think we're finally to a spot where it's nice and dry. I didn't use any water other than yesterday as a test, and decided to go against that. So we're ready to go. And I'm gonna be using these kits right here. This is the Rust-Oleum Rock Solid garage floor coating kit. I've read mixed reviews about them, but this seems to be the best DIY friendly option, and I really like the look of it, and so we're gonna give it a go. This is a 2.5 car garage kit, which says it can cover up to 500 square feet. This garage is 637 square feet per the appraiser, and so I have 2 kits because I've heard the kits underperform as far as coverage goes. And so my goal here is to, well, have more than enough, use it all, do a thick coating, and I also bought some extra color chips in case I want to go a little bit heavier than what comes in the box. I did get some anti-skid as well. I don't actually think I'm going to use this. We'll see. And yeah, some paint brushes, roller handle. So let's see what's in the kit. I haven't even opened it yet. Okay, so got a bag with the chips on top. Looks like there's about that bag's probably the same as about both of these together. So about an extra kit's worth. 2 rollers. And here are the, this is the concrete etch. So if you are doing a full etch with water, which a lot of people will do it that way, then yeah, it comes with the etch. But I did the dry version, and I'm curious to see how it works. So I started the prep process yesterday, and so technically this is over a 2-day period, but that's just because we couldn't actually get into the house until like 1 p.m. And so had I been able to start in the morning, I could have been doing this by evening. So theoretically, this is a 1-day application process because you don't have to wait for that drying period that a lot of people do if they're doing just a wet etching rather than renting the grinder like I did. So each box comes with 2 of these packets. There's a part A up here, part B. You squeeze them, it combines them, mix them around, go to town. And I think these have about a 20 to 45 minute dry time, so you want to get them down in time. So I've got 4 total bags, and I've got 6 squares. So theoretically, if I can get one bag to cover about 1.5 squares, that should bring it to where we're good. But we'll see how coverage goes. Worst case scenario, I'll have to send Sadie back to the store to get some while I'm in the middle of this. So, I'm gonna dive right in. Before I started the epoxy, I decided to vacuum one last time just to make sure there was no dust hiding and was going to have any issues with adhesion. So I grabbed all the parts, did a little CPR on the bag to get the part A and part B mixed, moved them around for a few minutes, and then poured it into a paint pan, where I would start by using a hand brush to just paint on around the edge on the perimeter where I couldn't use the roller. And I wasn't too concerned about the line along the wall, as you can tell, because I plan to paint the walls. And so I figured I would cut that in cleanly later when I had paint that didn't dry so fast. And as I moved along, before I got too far, I would spread some of the paint chips throughout the epoxy while it was still wet and I could reach it with a throw. And I just kind of eyeballed the amount because I didn't know exactly how much to put, but it looked pretty good. So continued on trying to get as much down as I could before the bag would dry up, and it went by really quick, but it also went further than I expected. Those first 2 floors squares were done, and I hadn't even used 1 full bag yet, so we were on pace to have plenty for the entire garage. One of the coolest tools I got for this project was this extendable paint handle. It extended both ways just using a push button in the middle, which was super nice because I found that I was working at all different distances and it's just way quicker than the twist style one. So that was really nice. But overall, the coverage thing is something that I saw a lot of people had questions about, and that's certainly something that I was wondering about when I started. And so as far as how much I put down, I would go over it to where I felt like I had 1 complete coat, and then I would go back and add what I viewed as almost a second coat while it was still wet. So it was, you know, more than just a coat, but I didn't really know how thick to go with it as I moved along. And in the end, I think I probably could have gone thicker, though I definitely don't feel like I was skimping. And the coverage was actually more than what I had read from a lot of people online, though still less than what the box advertised. After I finished applying all the epoxy and the chips, which took probably about 4 hours, I mowed the yard and let it sit overnight. And then when I came back in the morning, this is how it looked. It's been sitting for almost 24 hours now, and it is nice and hard. The inspector's at work, deciding if we did an okay job, but I think that we did. Overall, a little inconsistent on the sprinkles all around the chips. I ended up using everything that came with the kit plus about half of that auxiliary or that extra bag that I bought. I didn't use at all the last half of the second box. So in total, I used 1.5 boxes, which is 3 of those chemical bags. And then I used 3 chip bags that come with them and an additional half from the auxiliary bag. So that's that. And I think overall, the chip volume seems pretty adequate to me. You can definitely tell there's some grip given by the chips being on the surface, but there is some bubbles all around. So like this thing right here, I'm not sure exactly what caused those. You can see another one over here. And they do leave a little bit of an edge around them. So I really don't know what caused that. I'm not sure if that's something that I should touch up or maybe even just sand the edges off. I don't know what caused that. But there's a handful around, and yeah, I mean, they aren't very noticeable, so it's not a big deal so long as it doesn't become a problem in the future. But one little thing that I did realize, so after I did the final cleaning in here, I did not blow off the top of the garage doors that were open. So they ended up being like big dust shelves. And after I started the process, which wasn't until after around noon yesterday, so you can see the sunlight on the edge there, I realized as I started that sun line, because this is a west facing door, that sun line slowly was creeping in. So to guard the epoxy from the sun, I had to come up with a way to kind of shield it. And so I like parked the van, the trailer, put boards up and coolers and stuff. But then it got progressively worse as the angle of the sun goes down, and so I wanted to shut the garage doors, but I went to do that and there was dust all over them, which was annoying. A little bit of foresight would have been smart. I should have just shut the doors, cleaned those off, got them all dust free, and then that way when you do get done laying the epoxy on the floor, you can just bring the doors down to where they're just cracked above the ground so that there's not contact, and then let it dry overnight. And I have a couple of fans going in here as well. And if you do go to drop your doors, you can always just do like the pull handle style if it's motorized. Like I did yesterday, I just pulled it. That way I can control it all the way down and make sure it didn't touch. And then I put vice grips on the tracks, one right here, and then one down on that door on the same spot. That way, if I lost control of the door, it couldn't pass that point. So there's no way that the bottom of the door could touch the wet epoxy and cause issues. So yeah, overall, I'm pumped with how it looks. It looks so good. It just feels like more of a shop than a garage, I guess, or like a warehouse. And yeah, I'm glad I did this. So now I think I'm gonna dive into painting the walls. So I think these walls were painted initially with just like a thin layer, or maybe it's just a primer, when the house was built almost 30 years ago. And I'd like to update it. I haven't decided on a color yet, but yeah, maybe a white or something light, a gray or green. So I might do a little bit of patchwork here, pull down these cabinets so that I have a clean slate behind them, and then, well, we'll see if I'll pull those down. And then, yeah, get to painting. But another cool thing, if you are working in a garage and you need light and you just have normal sockets, these LED panel lights that have wings all around them, super bright. Like obviously it's daylight right now and that door's locked, but it turns this place into like daylight. So if you were working out here at night, when you're doing the actual epoxy project, it'd be plenty bright. Yeah.